Welcome to the Naturally Healthy Pets Podcast. Let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to the Naturally Healthy Pets Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Judy Morgan, and my guest today is Billy Hoekman, and we are going to be talking about the importance of wild fermentation. And for those of you who don't know Billy, I don't know what rock you've been hiding under because he's very well known in the pet industry. Billy is Vice President of Nutrition and Communication for Green Juju, pet food and treats and all things yummy. He is involved in formulation, sourcing, working with farmers, education, sales, and marketing. Any other hats that you wear? Oh yeah, dad, husband.
Those are the most
dog
important
owner.
ones. Exactly.
He's also a well-known pet health advocate who specializes in making complicated concepts easy to understand. And if you ever get a chance to hear Billy speak at an event, he's really fun to listen to, and he nerds out on science and information, but makes it really comprehensible for those of us who are like, really? But he's a fun nerd.
I'll take it. I judge the public speaking by the number of laughs I get during the actual presentation, because it means people are listening.
That is true, and you do always make it fun. The best one, though, was the one where you cried over Maple and your dog.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's slightly embarrassing, but it is. They are my inspiration. So
Billy it was in Virginia Beach, and he had a slide of his daughter Maple and their dog Huckleberry, who's a little Frenchie, and he talked about why he does what he does, and it's so that these two best friends can be best friends for a very long time. And all of a sudden, his eyes just filled up, and he went, I wasn't expecting that. And I think pretty much everyone in the audience kind of had the same reaction, like, oh, because they're both very cute.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's an understatement. I'm kind of having the same reaction now, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, no, I have met them both, and Maple is 3.
Yeah, she just turned 3. Yep.
Just turned 3. So she's 3 going on 37 because she speaks better than most of us and has a vocabulary that if any new humongous words, like she says things that you just would never expect to come out of a 3-year-old. And when I saw her, she was a 2-year-old.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, my funny story with that was when she was 15 months old, she said, every day is a gift. And we were like, okay, well, you are 80 apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, yeah. She's, her favorite word right now, I think in the last couple of days is quality. So she keeps talking about the quality of things and that. So, or the other day she goes, oh, you know what? Now I'm not going to be able to remember it now that I said quality. So anyway, she's very smart.
She is. She's just cute as a button and incredibly sweet. I have never seen her have a meltdown, which is very cool.
Oh, wait.
I'm sure she has them, but
she definitely does. She said, she goes, currently, what does that mean? And then she goes, it's not raining currently. Currently, it's not raining. So that was her little.
See, 3 going on whatever. I mean,
Exactly.
she's incredible. She's very, very cute. Okay, we're here to talk about fermentation, even though Maple's a great topic. So we know you're the king of fermentation. I'm going to have to tell stories on you because I've just heard so many, and they're funny. And let me just tell everyone that Billy's wife is a saint because she puts up with Billy's science projects in her kitchen. But my absolute favorite was the exploding poop fermentation.
Well, it wasn't exactly, it did. It's not that it exploded. It's just, it worked really well, too well for comfort. I did a ferment on the, I fermented 2 of the, fecal transplant capsules from, Animal Biome. And within 7 hours, it I mean, there's a lot of good microbes in there, because I've never seen this. Within 7 hours, it turned into a very formed poop cheese, essentially. And was the grossest thing. And I needed to get it out of my house. Although now I'm sort of regretting that. And here's why. Because really what you could do with that is you could take that really gross cheese and you could take out, say, like a half ounce of it, and you could inoculate that into new milk. And then you could take that would become like a yogurt. And then you could take that yogurt and take some of that and inoculate that out. And eventually it'll just be the microbes and not the actual poop. But it was just weird and gross. So I got it out of my house. And when I opened it, Emily heard me from the other room say, "This is a mistake. Nobody should ever do this," to myself. So, but that does tell you that those capsules are very viable with a lot of good bacteria. So,
well, I happen to have some fecal transplant capsules sitting on my desk, but I don't think I'm going to ferment them.
No, I wouldn't recommend it. And I ferment many, many things. So,
yes, you do. So, but now we've got this new thing that you're doing, and you're calling it wild fermentation. What is wild fermentation?
So wild fermentation in a nutshell is, there's a lot of ways I think that people are more used to in the industry. Here's a good example. Like if you're making kefir, you are inoculating, especially like kefir from the grocery store. So they're pasteurizing the milk so they kill the milk or the good bacteria in there. And then they introduce like a kefir culture of some kind. So good probiotics, healthy yeast, etc. And then those are going to be what sort of like proliferates throughout the into the kefir, and that's what thickens it. That's what makes it grow. And that's the same thing with yogurt. It's the same thing with like a lot of fermentation uses like whey to do that, even in like vegetable ferments. But wild fermentation is different. It's harnessing the bacteria that naturally exist within the food itself, and the natural yeast that exists within the food itself and in the air. And it's sort of like when people do sourdough, you can, you're kind of getting whatever the environment is there. And so when you harness those bacteria specifically, and it doesn't matter what the food is, you are harnessing nature's sort of intended probiotics. So what that means is it's an entire food culture. And I think one of the things that our dogs and cats are missing generally is all of those, countless species they would get from, let's say, your dog's maybe not missing some of this, but your dogs, plural, because you live on a farm, right? Most of our dogs don't live. Most of our dogs don't live on a farm, and most of us don't get out to the woods, every day or anything like that. Most of our dogs aren't eating whole prey in the woods and getting dirt in their mouths and getting these subsets of bacteria, or digging for plants. And that's really, I think, the future of probiotics. And also what we're always looking to do is, how do we take whole foods, grow those cultures? And then it's the difference of, say, supplementation, which can obviously be effective, right? Like you've seen it, dog X has a gut issue. You add probiotic, and it really helps. The difference here is we're looking, we look at like a base of diversity. So any one of those wild ferment cultures, you're going to be getting hundreds of different species and family types within that. And it's going to change every time you say, I'm doing something with beets at home or something like that. It's going to change every time I do it based on the beets themselves, because those beets were grown in a different soil on a different farm. They were harvested during a different time of year when it comes to, yeast. Even in my kitchen, there's different sort of native bacteria that will change throughout the year. So you're going to get all of these hundreds of species. So what I would argue for that we need moving forward is that base of diversity. And then if we need to supplement on top of that, you can sort of do that. The other cool thing is, and this comes from like a study done on raw milk, but I think the same thing's true when you also wild ferment. But I was looking at a study on raw milk where they were actually measuring and analyzing some of the bacteria types in milk, and they could basically, when they took all these subsets, they could not only tell what farm it was from based on the bacteria subset in the milk, but they could find those bacteria in other parts of the farm itself. So what that means is all of those native bacteria on the farm are getting into the milk as well. So you're really getting all the bacteria of the farm and not just the milk itself, which I think, most of us, my dog, for example, sits on a computer chair most work days with me here at this co-working space. And then he goes home and he doesn't get a lot of time outside of the city. And so the goal of wild fermentation started to bring environment into the diet, if that makes sense.
It makes great sense. And I love it. And it's really interesting because over the years with all of my foster dogs and, newly adopted train wrecks, I've had a lot of them that will go out and search the yard, and they will literally chow down on potting soil or, pulling out grass and roots. And very interestingly, I had a potted palm by our pool, and it had died over the winter. So I dumped it out, and I dumped it out in the donkey paddock. And I was just figuring, well, the soil will just mix in, it'll be fine. But it had this huge root ball, and the donkeys came, they ate the root ball and all of the potting soil. And I was like, clearly our farm soil is very dead. I actually just bought soil probiotics for 10 acres that we're going to go spray out there.
Wow.
And so I know that my equines are lacking in good soil probiotics. So this pot had really rich, good stuff in there. And so it just goes to show you that if you give pharmacognosy, if you give the animals a chance and a choice, they will choose what they need. And I should have videoed it. I stood there absolutely fascinated watching these donkeys eating every bit of that dirt. I was like, wow. So this is very cool.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and to mention, when you're doing this in vegetables and plants and mushrooms and things like that, they are all soil-based cultures like that, because they're coming from the plant itself.
Right. So I want to talk about how you're handling those and what you're doing with them. We need to take a break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Do you add fermented foods to your dog's diet? We offer the Incorporating Fermentation into Your Dog's Diet mini course, where Billy Hoekman, Vice President of Nutrition and Communication at Green Juju, shows some simple ways you can ferment a variety of foods for your dog at home. Share all the benefits of fermented food. This course is only 1 hour and can make a difference in your dog's health. Podcast listeners can take advantage of a 20% discount by using the promo code PODCAST48 at drjudyu.com. Take the guesswork out of what you feed your pet. All Provide Pet Food is the company that Dr. Judy trusts to make her famous pup loaf and now cat loaf formulas. These are originally crafted, gently cooked diets designed for nourishment and vitality for both adult cats and dogs. Both exclusive recipes marry a variety of proteins with distinctive ingredients, setting the stage for your pet's optimal health. Order at allprovide.com. Your pet will thank you.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Naturally Healthy Pets podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Judy Morgan, and my guest today is Billy Hoekman, Vice President of Nutrition and Communication for Green Juju. We're talking about wild fermentation. So I know that Green Juju either just came out or is coming out with a new wild fermented mushroom probiotic. So does that mean that the fermentation and the probiotics and organisms that are in this are coming from the mushrooms as they're harvested? You're not adding anything into that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's so we take cremini, shiitake, and oyster mushrooms from the first organically certified mushroom farm in the country, which is about 45 minutes south of my house. And
Cool.
What we're making there is a salt brine. So all we're doing is putting those mushrooms in salt water, essentially. It's actually really funny. Sometimes when you do a salt brine like that, it's not a very difficult ferment. Mushrooms are not an easy ferment. I actually failed at this more than a handful of times when I was developing this before we figured it out.
Really?
Yeah, it's not as easy as like carrots or sauerkraut or something like that. But
really, is that because they have a lower sugar content? Why is it that they don't ferment as well?
I think that, and it's also paired with they just have a higher diversity of like baseline like yeast and bacteria differences. Especially like the cool thing about wild ferments too is like when you get the yeast profiles, they're like a balanced profile of what exists in nature. So it's kind of like, you might have like this is just a side note, you might have like a candida overgrowth or something. These will contain a full yeast profile, including candida, but it'll be the actual profile that would exist in a healthy way, right, in nature versus,
right.
That kind of thing. And so, yeah, essentially during that fermentation process and keeping those at a temperature of about 70 degrees, all of the, once you put the salt in, the pH lowers. And then once the pH lowers, all those good bacteria like, oh, we love this environment. And then they start to grow, and that lowers the pH even more, which is also your food safety step. And so with the mushrooms, it's kind of like a double whammy because you get the first part, which is like, this is meant to be a probiotic, and it's meant to be, like I was talking about, that base of diversity, but also, so instead of, it was kind of funny because when we released this, people didn't really know the questions to ask about it because there's nothing like it on the market. And so they'd be like, how do you extract, the mushroom? And it was like, none of that. We don't do anything that's been sort of done. And so you will get sort of some of the benefits as well of the mushroom because those bacteria are eating the mushrooms and opening up,
right.
Essentially it's like, to get certain benefits of some mushrooms, you have to cook them, or, there's all these things you have to do to foods. It's kind of the same thing. Like a parallel for that would be, we have a fermented golden paste product, which we know that those bacteria eat the curcumin and turn it into metabolites, which makes it easier for your dog or cat's, body to just kind of assimilate into the bloodstream. And so it's kind of the same thing with the mushrooms. And we've been seeing, it's cool when you actually get to release it into the world, because we've been seeing like a myriad of different health benefits, and not only for just basic diversity, like I would say any healthy animal, whatever, but also for like managing. We're starting to get back, and it's only been, I don't know, a couple months that it's been like consistently in stores, and we've already been getting back, like managing, certain conditions like IBD and things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're selling this as a broth? Like how is this packaged?
Yeah, it's frozen. It's in an 8 ounce. It's in an 8 ounce bottle. It's a very adorable bottle as well. And it lasts a really long.
I haven't seen it.
It lasts a really long time too, for what you get, especially. And once you thaw it out, it lasts for 30 days in the fridge because of the fact that it's fermented and the pH is low. The pH averages, I think, somewhere around like 3.8. So, it's the same thing as those like pickles you have in your fridge for 2 years and they're still good,
And can you give this to dogs and cats?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So great for dogs and cats. The palatability, the pre-palatability was good. The in-market palatability has been good as well. One of the really interesting things, just side note, that I learned when making this product was 65% of all the mushrooms produced in America come out of 2 counties in Pennsylvania.
That doesn't surprise me, because we used to, at the boarding facility where I kept my horses as a teenager and then again in adulthood, they used straw for their bedding, and the mushroom farmers would come over and take all the used bedding over to grow the mushrooms on.
Yeah.
So that's how they disposed of their manure and straw for Oh my gosh, it's been 40 years and they're still doing it.
Yeah, they had there's actually a really cool program with people we use where it's like kind of like a cycle. So they take products like that and then they compost them, and then the mushrooms make better soil when they grow, and then they actually take that soil when they harvest the mushrooms, and it's free to the farmers, and the farmers take it back and put it on their fields. So it's like a nice cycle.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's like a nice environmental cycle of how these mushrooms are.
See, that's the soil I need on my farm. Like I need to get involved in one of these programs. I need to be recycling something back into the land.
It's free. If you want to pick it up, I could put you in contact with these people. Really, you'd have to come up with a.
Well, thanks. It's a bit of a drive, and I'm going to have to get a big old truck.
I'm just saying, if you ever get desperate, I'm sure I can make that happen for you.
I'll see how my soil probiotics do when I spray them on my land.
Yeah,
which is very cool. And we don't think of it. It's interesting. We planted new raised flower beds this year, and we brought in supposedly good topsoil to fill the first 2/3 of it, and it still is topsoil in North Carolina is still clay. I mean, it just forms this rock hard lump. So then I went and got, good garden potting soil in bags and put it on top of that. But then we also bought worms and soil probiotics. And let me tell you, these flower beds are like the best thing ever. Next year, I'm going to fill them with vegetables instead. So this is very cool. So when the product comes, are the so you ferment the mushrooms in this brine, and then are you just selling the broth, or are the mushrooms still in there too?
Just the brine.
So you just drain that?
Yeah, just the brine.
What happens to all the mushrooms, or are they completely broken down?
No, so they're not. They actually get smaller, which is interesting. They kind of, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, kind of. So as you can expect with me, these are fermented by one Amish guy in Pennsylvania, and then put into the bottle by like one or two other Amish guys. And so I think John is actually still trying to figure out what he wants to do with those mushrooms. So I think they're currently just being stored. And but for us, it was kind of like it's an easier education piece for the pet owner if they're going to just. My guess is if
just add some broth.
Yeah, my guess is if you can't find somewhere to go with them in a certain amount of time, they'll probably be fed to goats. That would be my guess.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
I mean, got to be some health benefits there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we it's really nice too for me to be able to partner and do more stuff out of Pennsylvania with local farmers here, and get to work with those people because contrary to the soil where you live, the soil here is incredible, and maybe it's because of all those Amish or maybe it's because of all those mushroom farmers returning all that soil for so long. Yeah. But yeah, it's incredible here.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, as has happened to so much of our land in this country, it gets overfarmed, and all of the nutrients are literally just gone. And that's why our food chain is so bad. And that's why fermentation is so good, because we're adding things back that are literally missing from our food chain these days. And so that trickles down. It's not just us, it's our animals, it's really interesting, like formulating food, and you look at nutrient profiles and you're like, yeah, but that nutrient profile from, like you said, the beets from one farm and one soil batch are going to be different from another farm, another time of year. So I think that it is really impossible to know the exact nutrient profile unless you take that exact beet and analyze it. And then you get your next one and you have to analyze that one.
And even then, that's the biggest thing that I run into and try to educate people on is, being at the very fun AFCO lab group and them saying that the average margin of error on a nutrient test is 20 to 50%. You're like, all right, well, great. And so that, that's why when it comes to like things I read on the internet, when people are like, you need to do this because it has this much manganese, it's like, We can't know that.
Yeah. Exactly. And I get so many questions in my inbox from people who are like, well, this isn't 100% complete and balanced. And I'm like, how do you know that anything is 100% complete and balanced unless you analyze every single ingredient every single time and know the exact components of that exact piece of beef, that exact piece of chicken, that exact piece of liver? And you don't, and you can't. And so you take averages and keep your fingers crossed. But, our animals do incredibly well. But this is why, and I know you do this with Huckleberry, we rotate and we put different things in the bowl. And, we're always, you just have way too much fun with food. I have fun with food, but you have way too much fun with food.
Well, one of my favorite, I think you'll find this really funny. One of my favorite stories to tell recent stories is I don't do very many like individual consults anymore. But sometimes some of them find their way into my email box, and I was working with this woman, and she said, my dog has had all of these sensitivity issues and can't eat any foods. So my dog has eaten nothing but sweet potato for 2 years. And you know what? The dog was mostly okay. To be honest with you, the dog was mostly fine. We definitely work to get it onto more foods and more balance. I'm not saying dogs should only eat sweet potato, but the idea that we're going to miss out on this nutrient for this week and the dog's going to go into, some trauma failure is just not, dogs are like us,
And I think that is really important. Like if you get nothing else out of this podcast episode, don't be freaking out thinking you're going to screw it up if you want to put real food in your pet's bowl, because you're not going to kill them. If you feed them something poisonous, but they are incredibly good at figuring it out. And as long as you're putting different things, and apparently not sweet potato every day for 2 years, whatever. I have had clients who have fed horribly, horribly deficient meals, and their animals are still running around bouncing and happy 2 years in. Mm-hmm. So don't freak out about every single meal being perfect. Just
do the best you can.
Learn as you go.
That's all we do. And that includes me and you, we just all do the best we can.
Exactly. This is great, Billy. Congratulations on the new product. Anybody who wants more information about Green Juju, there's information on our website. We carry a lot of their freeze-dried products because we can't ship frozen stuff. They're on Instagram and Facebook under Green Juju Kitchen. And I promise not to give out Billy's email because he'll have 400 consults. But you can contact them through Green Juju Kitchen.
You can email info@greenjuju.com and or our social media. And truth be told, Kelly and I disperse and get all the info at Green Juju emails. So, and I handle all the nutrition questions. They go straight to me.
Okay, he gave it out. I didn't have to. Now it's on him. If he gets 400 consultation requests next week, it's not my fault.
I just refer them to other people who do that for a living. So that's totally fine. Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Well, he'll at least point you in the right direction. Billy, as always, thank you very much. Can't wait to meet up with you. I know we'll at least be together in October, but maybe before.
Yes, I'm about due to bug you again. So about coming to your house. So
Billy just invites himself when he wants to.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, everyone. Enjoy your pets. Thank you very much, Billy.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another great Naturally Healthy Pets episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for some helpful links. And if you enjoy the show, please be sure to follow and listen for free on your favorite podcast app. We value your feedback and would love to hear from you on how we're doing. Visit drjudymorgan.com for healthy product recommendations, comprehensive courses, upcoming events, and other fantastic resources. Until next time, keep giving your pet the vibrant life they deserve.
The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform. It is no substitute for professional care by a veterinarian, licensed nutritionist, or other qualified professional. You're encouraged to do your own research and should not rely on this information as professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Dr. Judy and her guests express their own views, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets neither endorses or opposes any particular view discussed here.